gosh, my background looks awful. Yours looks so cute.
Hello. Oh, your studio looks great. I can see animals in the back too.
Oh yeah, they're all here this morning. They get excited when we go to work. So yours is so cute though. I love all your shelves and books and pretty colors.
Yeah, my husband built that for me during the pandemic. That was his project.
Yeah. Maybe I should turn my computer somehow to face my shelves. They're pretty nice. Okay. We've been live for 32 seconds now talking to each other.
We're here.
I like that. Yay. So for anybody watching, I'm Sally Britton, as my name says. How do you there? And this is Marilee, my lovely assistant.
Hello.
She keeps things running smoothly, and we're here today to answer a bunch of questions that people on my Facebook group asked. So these are the answers to #AskSally. So.
Yay! Awesome. Yay. You ready? We got some really fun questions. I don't know if you've read through them all, but we have some good ones.
I have a little bit. Okay.
First one, let's talk about the Hearts of Arizona series, because that's what you're working on right now, right? Editing?
Yes.
Ladies Heart of Gold. Okay. Mara wants to know how many books will be in the series.
Just the 3. That's all that's currently planned. There may or may not be a Christmas novella in the future for that series, featuring one of the kids all grown up, because I kind of have that story playing in my head. But I have no plans to continue the series with any more novels.
Okay, so this is the last one.
The last one.
Okay.
Yes. I won't say forever, but.
Right. Would you ever write another Western series down the road?
I mean, I've thought, I kind of thought of, like, my original plan with writing this series based in Arizona. I lived in Arizona when I came up with the whole idea for it. So my original plan was to write a series of 3 books, so a trilogy, and then 2 more Western series that were 3 books each, and kind of like travel with one of the main characters. Like, my idea was to take one character from the end of book 3, who goes to Oklahoma, for example, and then is a secondary character for the first book set in Oklahoma. Like, that was the idea, to do Arizona, Oklahoma, and Texas. But I mean, I have a lot on my plate. And for those who don't know, I am the provider in my family. And so as much as I enjoy writing certain types of books, I do have to consider what the most popular books are and write those in order to generate an income for my family.
That makes sense.
So, as much as I love artistic endeavors and doing things just for fun, my Western books haven't been a big provider for the family. So it's practical and I hate it, but there it is.
It is the reality of life, but I'm excited for Ed's story. The bits that I have read, it's gonna be good. How are edits coming? You getting close?
Everything that has already been written is now edited. So I just have to add new words at the very end to complete the story.
Very fun. It's coming soon. Couple weeks.
It'll be done. I'm excited. Yep.
Oh, how fun. We're all excited. We love those books. Okay, let's go on. We had some question about publishing. I assume from people, maybe some potential authors who are working on things. Tanya asked, how did you decide which way to go for publishing? I assume she's talking about trad versus indie. And when did you attend your first writers conference? And did you go to the conference before you had a book published? Maybe I'm asking too many questions at once. Did you go to the conference before you had a book published, or did you start going to conferences when you were still working on your first book?
That is a lot. Let's see. So I have always written stories and I've always loved it. And my husband had a pretty great job. At least we felt like it was great at the time, from about 2015. Up until that point, we were your typical young married couple with, 3 kids under the age of 7, and life was crazy. So things finally started to kind of fall into place for our family to just be able to relax more. And I had more time to myself. So in 2017, I started thinking, I would like to publish a book. that, or 2015, I guess, that would be fun. So I started writing and doing things like NaNoWriMo, National Novel Writing Month in November. For those who don't know what that is, look it up. It's really awesome. And then I was reading lots of books about writing, and I decided, I think I can do this, and I think I can start maybe submitting books. But then I read all about the submission process for my favorite publishing houses. And honestly, I have a real problem with rejection. So I was like, I don't think I want to go that route. What's this indie publishing stuff and this self-publishing stuff I'm hearing about? So I studied that all of 2017. And my goal originally with publishing books was just to get my stories out there. And I thought, if that's all I want to do, if I just want people to be able to read my books, then it shouldn't matter how I publish them. So, because there was a little bit of a stigma for self-published authors around that time period. Yeah, things have changed a lot. We are a great deal more respected now than we were, 5-6 years ago. So I read some more about how to do it. And in January 2018, I self-published my first book on Amazon. And I've been going strong ever since. It's kind of been a bit of a surprise that people have enjoyed my books as much as they have. So it makes me happy.
Not a surprise to those of us who read them.
And then I guess the conference question too, right? I need to answer that.
Right.
Let's see. I applied for scholarships to go to conferences because, like I said, I used to, we were the poor married couple with little kids. And I never got a scholarship, which was always kind of a bummer. So I went to my first conference in 2018 after I had published my first book. Because, we were more financially stable and my husband was super supportive over what we were calling at that point my side gig or hobby. So that's that. Yeah. So I went after.
So would it be if somebody's looking to publish, would it be helpful to go to conferences before they publish if they're able to? It seems like
for
there's
sure.
a lot of helpful things there, right?
Oh, so many things. And if writing is something that you enjoy, even if it's not, like, I've met people who only write fan fiction who go to conferences because it brings them joy and makes them happy. So I think if you can afford to go to a conference and it's something you want to do for yourself, either professionally or personally, that they're always wonderful investments. And if you're wondering what conferences I enjoy, feel free to message me, anybody who wants to. So I've been to a few now virtually and in person.
Yeah, in fact, that was one of the other questions, is your favorite writers' workshops and conferences?
So because I'm self-published, one of my favorite conferences is the Writing Gals Conference. It's all online and it's all virtual. And they focus primarily on writing clean / sweet / wholesome romance. Anything that, doesn't get too, I guess, sensual is the right word, or sexual. So it's like that's their focus, is writing romance as independent and self-published authors. So I love their conference. It's only been virtual so far. I think there are plans in the future to have a physical conference as well. But like this year for their conference, I'm teaching 2 classes and planning on taking most of the others.
Very fun. Well, in virtual, if money's an issue for somebody, virtual may be a good way to go because it's just the cost for the conference. You don't have to travel and hotel expenses and things like that. So, and that's the one coming up in October? When's that one?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's in October.
And
there's a link to it somewhere in the group.
Yeah. The link.
No, but I really enjoyed, like, I know the ladies who run the Writing Gals group. I've sat down and had dinner with them, and I've spoken to them one-on-one several times. And they're just very supportive and very, very helpful, very transparent about the world of writing. And what's great too is, these ladies have experienced it all. They've been working moms, they've been stay-at-home moms, they've been single, they've been, so they have like all these different life experiences. So they give great advice. Like I see people ask all the time, how do you manage to, write and be a stay-at-home mom, for instance? Or people say, how do you write if your spouse isn't supportive? And they've gone through that and they get it. And their group as a whole is really, really wonderful for anybody who thinks about writing as a hobby or as a career.
Okay. So Writing Gals Conference. That one's big thumbs up. Okay.
Yep.
Love it.
My next favorite was probably Story Makers, and that takes place in Provo every year, and they do virtual and in person. I've taught there and I've attended there, and it's always a lot of fun. It's a very supportive community, and it's great whether you want to go to the traditional route or whether you want to do it yourself. They have tracks for both, and it's also great for any style of writing. They usually have a big list of fantasy authors who come and teach.
Nice.
Charlie Holmberg, who wrote the Paper Magician series, almost always teaches there. Brandon Sanderson has taught. I'm trying to think who else, but they get a lot of really good people in, so it's worth going to.
Very fun. Okay, writing gals and story makers, good places to start. And anyone who's watching, if you have more questions, I'm watching the comments. So if you have more or follow-up questions, just pop them in, and we will ask Sally. Okay. Let's see. We had some questions about what you like to eat and your favorite recipes. Rachel wants to know your favorite summer recipe, and Ruth wants to know like what go-to dinner recipes. What do you guys like to eat in your house? What's been a recent favorite for you?
I feel like first I have to admit to everyone that I do not enjoy cooking at all. I did it when I had to do it, and now my husband and kids take turns making meals. I very, very rarely cook. But one of my favorite things, I'm gonna see if I can pull it up on Pinterest. I actually was going to do this earlier, but just not prepared enough. Um, One of my favorite things that I've ever made, I actually found in like a Betty Crocker dollar cookbook or something like that. It's like a very affordable meal, and I made it again in the early days of marriage, when there wasn't a lot of funds to make money, not make money, to make food. There wasn't a lot of money to pay for a lot of food. How about that? Let me see if I can find it. It's like a one skillet meal, and it's called like a Southwestern skillet, and it's all veggies. Okay, I found. It's really good. Okay, I found it. Let me see if I can. Oh, come on, open up.
And your kids would eat it, even though it's all veggies.
My kids would eat it, and my husband is like very much a meat and potatoes guy. Oh, I found it. There you go. It's a long and messy link, but there it is. But he loved it too. If you've ever had like a really good Southwestern egg roll, this has those same flavors. And it's great because you can switch things in and out. Like if your family doesn't like tomatoes, like there are tomatoes in the recipe, fine, just don't put tomatoes in it. If your kids are not really big into, black beans, switch it out for a different color bean or whatever it is you want. But we've used this, we've eaten it on its own, like just in a bowl. We've used it as like a kind of dip with chips, like nachos. We've used it as burrito filling and taco filling. So I shared it, and it's shared really messily. Let me try one more time. But it's like one of the few things that our whole family would eat at least some of back in the day.
Which is a winner. It's a winner. I'll cook almost anything if it's relatively healthy, and the less complaints I get, the better, right? That's how I gauge whether it was a success or not.
It's like, well, and what's nice too is it is a one skillet meal. Like you don't have to make a ton of stuff dirty for it. So even if you have a kid who is like very anti or very allergic to something that's in this, it's not a big deal then to pop something else on the stove or in the oven because you're not making a huge mess for this meal. Right. My mom calls recipes like this dump recipes, which sounds really awful, but it basically means you're just dumping things into a pot or a skillet.
I'm pretty sure I have a cookbook that has the word dump on it. But it's handy though.
Great.
I love those. Quick and easy, and people like them. That's the way to go. I love it. Okay. Ruth, that's what you can make for dinner. That's what Ruth wanted to know, what she should make for dinner. And now she has the recipe.
It's really good, Ruth. It's really good. If you guys like any kind of Tex-Mex or Mexican food, it's easy to throw this in. It's also great to take to potlucks.
Hey. I love it. All right. Let's see. We have covered those. Let's talk about audiobooks. We had some questions about audiobooks. First, is Ashley wanted to know how you find the narrators for your audiobooks. I know you've got some favorites that you like to use. How do you find those?
Oh yeah. There are a couple of different ways to do it. when I very first started out, like my very first audiobook that I was in charge of, my first four audiobooks are the first four branches of love books. I did not pick the narrator for those because they were produced by an audio company. So those four books I had very little input or anything on. And after those four were done, it's like, you know what? I think I can do this myself. So what I do is I actually posted an audition on the author side of the Audible website. So you know how you can go to Audible and you can get books and stuff. So there's an author dashboard. And what you do is you post like a snippet of your story and you say what kind of a voice you're looking for, age, accent, like you can be really specific. And then you just post it for auditions. And there's a whole database of narrators. So any narrator who's looking for something to do can go in and see all these different auditions and pick one that they like. So that's how I found a couple of my narrators. And my favorite narrator, and I won't say who, because I mean, what if they watched and that would be awful. My favorite narrator, I actually heard her narrating a different book. And so I approached her instead of an audition and said, hey, would you be interested in reading my book and then maybe narrating it? And she was, thank goodness, because
yay.
I had heard her do an entire series. I was like, this lady's really good. I want her. So that's how I have found narrators so far.
Yeah. Which is important because I don't listen to a lot of audiobooks, but I know that people say the narrator can make or break the audiobook. If you've got a bad narrator, even if the book is fantastic,
Yeah.
it can mess it up. So
And people can be like, and different voices work for different people. So yeah, I'm not going to sit here and disparage any narrators, but I have certainly turned off an audiobook pretty quickly. My daughter's favorite book series is this Shannon Messenger series. Oh goodness, what's it called? I don't remember what it's called, but Shannon Messenger is like a series about elves in modern day. It's like my daughter's favorite. And she's been trying to get me to read it for so long. And so we got in the car. I said, oh, look, I got the audiobook. Why don't we listen to that together then? And we're talking, she's obsessed. She owns several editions of the first book in this series, including an annotated edition, you know?
I love it.
So I hit play and like we make it 5 minutes into the story. She goes, Mom, you got to turn it off. You can't do this. Mom, you got to turn. Like she was
Oh
so
no.
irritated by the narrator. And I was like, yeah, I don't think we need to do it this way. I guess I'll have to actually just read them.
Read it.
So yeah. So, you
Oh.
know, it happens.
And now we've got audiobooks up on YouTube.
Yes. And this is a growing trend.
Yes. How many are up there now? Have you got
Um,
posted on your YouTube
my husband's waiting on me to get some stuff. My husband is my I guess audio producer for these, my YouTube producer. But I've got 2 novels and 1 novella. No, 3 novels up right now. I've got 3 novels. I've got the His Unexpected Heiress, Her Unsuitable Match, and Mistletoe Mischief. That's what's up right now. But we're working on getting everything up. It's just kind of a slow process. And one of the rules on YouTube, which this might be TMI for some people, but one of the rules on YouTube is if you're going to post content that has already been used somewhere else, so in this case, Audible or other audiobook sites, you have to do something to make it stand apart on YouTube. And some people do this with, you know, scenes or movies or illustrations. And I've decided to do it by adding an author's note to the end of each book. So
Oh.
I'm recording myself giving, you know, like a YouTube exclusive author's note at the end.
Ooh.
So that's what my husband is waiting on. He's waiting for me to do author's notes for all these books. And, you know, I'm a busy person, so it's taken a little bit for me to get on that. But I promise I will.
Yeah. Now I want to go listen to the author's notes that you have up there. Even if so some of those books I've listened to already, but I can listen to the author's notes. Okay, so 3, and there's more coming. So will you be able to put up all the branches of love, even the ones that were produced by somebody else? Do you have the rights to those?
So this is kind of fun, and I've talked about it a little bit. No, technically I can't put up the first 4 books because all the rights for the audio version are currently with that company and will be for 7 years from the time the book was published with them. So I will be doing new editions of those books in both print, or in all, not both, in print, ebook, and audiobook. And then I will have the rights.
To the
So
new
it's
one. Okay.
yeah, for the new one. So it's kind of a complicated process. So branches won't be up in its entirety for a little bit. And then when the entire series is up, um, there will be some new things in each book and hopefully some surprises for everybody, because it's, they're new additions with new scenes, little editing tweaks, and hopefully it'll be a new experience for people who have even enjoyed the books before.
Those are some of my favorites. The Earl and His Lady is one of my absolute favorites, of course. So yay, I'm excited. But the whole series will get a little makeover, not just those first ones, right?
Yeah, the whole series will get a little bit of a facelift, I guess. And the stuff that people love the most isn't going to change. But, mistakes I've made, I'm going to fix. And then, like I said, hopefully we'll have some great new scenes, maybe entirely new chapters. Still kind of working on it.
Yay. All right. Things to look forward to. Love it. Okay. So yeah, so you guys need to go check out the YouTube channel if you haven't. Go check out free audiobooks. I still think that's amazing. It's just amazing.
What's great too, just a quick side note on that too, is if you go to my channel, there's like a little link option to hit channels, whether you're on your phone or you're on your desktop. And I have linked to other authors who write clean and sweet romance, and their YouTube channels. So you can find other authors who are doing the same thing I'm doing and support all of us because we're really excited.
Yes, I'm going to go check that out. I'm going to go subscribe to all their stuff. I know I've seen Victoria, what's her last name? Leesky?
Victorine Leesky, yeah.
Yes. She's the other one that I've seen do it tons, but I need to go check out some more. Okay. Change of pace. So Madeline wants to know how you conduct research for your books. And then Leslie's got a question, but we'll have that in a second.
Okay, so at this point, we'll talk about Regency since that's the thing I tend to have the most research on. At this point, I'm really familiar with a lot of the Regency world because I've been writing in it for 5 years. So 5 years, yes. So I've got a lot of Regency books, nonfiction books that I've read cover to cover that now I can just go grab and, skim until I find what I'm looking for. There's also a lot of great online resources that I have access to. The British newspaper archives is one of my favorite things. I can search British newspapers all the way back to the early 1700s. Yeah, it's really great because there's some things, and this happens a lot in author circles, especially for historical books. There are a lot of things that people debate. It's like, well, did this happen or did this not happen? And we can't always find it in the books that we have on our shelves. But if it's ever been mentioned, I can find it in newspapers. So like one big thing was people were talking about when Father Christmas, who, we call Santa Claus now, started being a thing in England, when he was actually celebrated and how was he celebrated. So that's something that I actually looked up for a friend. I was looking at, Father Christmas, and it turns out that he was a celebrated person who kind of did a little bit of a parade in the streets in smaller villages in England. So Father Christmas would walk down like the main street, and all the kids would come out and cheering for him. And he would give them sweets. Sometimes he would hand out like really little toys, or even just trinkets like buttons, So Father Christmas was just this person who kind of ushered in the Christmas season, which ran from, Christmas Eve, basically. My thing keeps falling out. I've got new earbuds. I'm trying to use them. But he would usher in the Christmas season more so than be the nightly visitor who brought presents.
Okay.
But stuff like that. It's cool to find out how things were actually done by going to contemporary sources like newspapers.
Right. First-hand source.
Yes.
That's the British archives. That's really fun. You can just access those online.
Everybody can access and get like so many free articles a month. I pay for a subscription. That's kind of costly, but that's totally worth it.
Oh, I bet. Okay. And then just a specific research question. Leslie wants to know about what kind of health issues did they know of back then? Like, what were they aware of but didn't know the cause or cure? Which I assume that's probably a pretty long list of
Oh yeah.
things
I
that
mean, they grouped a lot of things together too that we now think of as very separate issues. So, they would say that somebody had had a fit, and that could mean anything from epilepsy to a stroke to even fainting sometimes. They had what they called, oh, what is it? Well, I'm sure most women here have heard of hysteria. Like that's
yeah.
something that a lot of women were treated for throughout the course of history. And hysteria could be anything from, heavy monthly cycles to depression to bipolar issues. So, like any mental illness, they had absolutely no concept of what to do with that. Um, if you were in high school and forced to read the yellow wallpaper, you'll know that this went all the way into the Victorian and even Edwardian stage. The yellow wallpaper is about a woman who is suffering from postpartum depression. And instead of taking her to the seaside or a garden, which might have been the best thing, in the story, the doctor prescribes for her to be kept to herself all alone in one room that
Oh,
has this really flamboyant yellow wallpaper. It's fascinating read, and it's based on the author's own experiences with postpartum depression. So anything mental, they had no clue how to handle that. When it came to more physical illnesses, like I said, they just clumped a lot of stuff together, and they tried different things until they worked. Um, there was, of course, physicians in that era. The way we think of like a general practitioner now wasn't really the same thing. A physician was usually, a son, a second, third, fourth son. So they didn't inherit anything big, but they didn't want to work with their hands. Like that was a big way of how gentility and nobility separated themselves from the commoners. So a physician actually very rarely touched their patients, even. So they'd come in and look things over and then make a pronouncement. Surgeons were a completely different class of doctor, and surgeons weren't even called doctors. They were usually still called Mr. So and so instead of Dr. So and so. And the surgeon would be the one who would come in and do any big operations on people.
right.
And they were less medically educated than physicians. It was a mess. It really was such
Right, right.
a mess.
And then you
And
have
like,
the apothecaries too thrown into the
yeah,
mix, trying, but I read it,
absolutely.
and I can't remember the name of the book, but I read a Regency in the recent past where they had the doctor and the surgeon. It was interesting because today a surgeon is like the top of the medical
Yep.
field, but the surgeon was definitely seen as a lower class, and the doctor didn't want to be seen as the surgeon, and they didn't want the anyway. It was just interesting how things have
Exactly.
changed over time, but that's why they didn't want to work with their hands. Okay.
You even had things like the delivery room. So many women were lost to having babies. And in the delivery room, when doctors started taking over from midwives, you actually saw a larger amount of lives lost, both infants and mothers, because doctors were really snooty and saw themselves as way above the woman and, tried not to be in contact with her. But physicians, like there was this whole big debate, even as early as the Regency, whether or not to wash your hands. And by and large, physicians said, I am not a dirty person, therefore I do not need to wash anything. Like that was the
Mm.
concept. And it was only really in Scotland where there was one doctor who had really stood his ground on this and noticed that when he washed his hands in between patients and even his clothes, he would wash his clothes or wear different smocks when he saw different patients. He noticed that the wards where he had women giving birth, that he had a better mortality rate. And they didn't understand germs, they couldn't see them. But he tried to publish this and let other people know. And by and large, they were like, again, that really snooty, I'm not a dirty person, therefore I don't need to
Right,
wash my hands. But there
right.
were a few people who recognized that. The gentleman physician in that book,
Mm,
my doctor,
mm,
Nathaniel, I wrote him as somebody who had trained underneath that Scottish doctor. And so he knew how to wash his hands
I remember that.
between patients. Yeah. So, and it was, I kind of made a big deal out of it in the book. And then afterwards, somebody told me, it's like, why did you do that? It's like every time you have to mention he's washing his hands. I'm like, you don't understand. He's saving lives. Just
What's a big thing?
yeah.
Right?
So,
and I'm sure it didn't help that that physician was from Scotland either, that he was trying to tell the English, you know.
Exactly. I need to grab a bottle of water really quick. Hang on.
Yeah, absolutely. No, so many things have changed, and for the better.
Yes, thank goodness. When people ask me, would you ever want to live in the Regency era or go back in time? It's like, maybe because I've had all my shots, I wouldn't be too worried about things, but I wouldn't want to spend very long there.
Oh goodness. I just read a time travel Regency series by Nicole Van. And, you know, as they go back, there was all sorts of talk like, oh, I wouldn't give some antibiotics right now. You know, that they knew and understood, you know, so many more things. So yeah. So I say it would be fun to go back and visit, but maybe not. Maybe not live. There's a reason some people did not live very long back then. Okay. Let's see. Any other, what, do you have a fun piece of research you've come across lately? I guess you're not really researching right now. You're editing, aren't you?
Yeah, mostly editing. Trying to think. Well, the funnest book that I'm using right now, writings. I think I accidentally, sorry. Like I said, I'm still getting used to these earbuds. I just accidentally started playing Amazon Music in one ear and listening to you in the other. It was not good. Yeah. Oh dear. I've got to figure these things out. I've got a book of cowboy slang that I'm enjoying.
Oh, fun.
And I bought this book in Tombstone, so it's even like so authentic. And so I've the guy who wrote it, this is gonna be funny for y'all, but the guy who wrote it, his cowboy nickname is Frosty too.
Really?
Like, this is a lovely coincidence. So that's been my funnest piece of research right now, is looking up all this cowboy slang for weird things.
I love it. I bet it had slang for everything.
Everything. Pretty women, ugly women, arrogant men, money, not money, wanted men. It's like they've got everything. You know, if somebody's well dressed, if somebody, like, one of my favorite is his hat can't carry water. And that basically was the idea of, like, he talks a big game, but he has no idea what he's doing. So because cowboys actually did often use their hats to get water from streams or from cisterns, sometimes to drink, sometimes just to dump it on their head or even give it to their horse. And so it's funny to hear it, his hat can't carry water, but it kind of also meant, it's like he has no idea what else his hat's good for other than covering his head, so it's like,
right.
It's an insult. I love it.
I love it when authors incorporate things like that into their books, though, that it just makes it more authentic. And then you learn things. You get to learn all these fun phrases. I love it. Jill Warner commented, she said the Shannon Messenger series is Keeper of the Lost Cities.
Yes, thank you.
Which I have heard of. I'm pretty sure my son has read those. He reads a lot of fantasy, but that sounds very familiar.
My daughter loves them.
Okay, Keeper of the Lost Cities. That's good. In fact, Ashley was asking for fantasy recommendations. If you've read any good fantasy lately.
I did prep for this one. So this isn't lately. It's a reread. So maybe it is lately. But I love this series by Haley Ryan. Dragon Chained is the first book. The series is called The Dragon of 23rd Street. And it's a complete series. With plans, the author said, if this series gets popular enough, so please go read it if you like fantasy, of doing like another series set in the same world. One of my favorite things about the series is the main character is a shapeshifter dragon, and her hoard, because dragons have to have a hoard. Her hoard is her bookshop. So books, she hoards books. And so if anybody steals from her bookshop, which is interesting, they pick up a book and try to walk out with it, she can sense it because it's part of her treasure. So she only lets books go if people, trade her treasure or, money or another book or something, because then it's a fair thing. So it's like, but it's a really fun book. It's got shapeshifters and dragons and, griffins and all that good stuff. So I love this series.
Haley Ryan, I've got it written down.
Okay. And another great one is, I love a lot of the stuff that Sylvia Mercedes has written. and I'm reading her series Prince of the Doomed City. It's not complete yet, so there's that. Also, CJ Archer has a bunch of delicious fantasies and historical romances. So CJ Archer. I'm waiting for one of her new releases. She wrote an entire series that I think finished now, the Glass and Steel series. And then this book happens years later, but is set in the same world. And it's historical England, but magic exists and is real. So I like that.
So kind of like the same idea a little bit for the fairy tale series you're thinking about.
Kind of, sort of, yeah.
And it's historical, but yet some fun magic.
It's like Queen Victoria is definitely on the throne, but she may or may not have a wizard working for her.
Exactly. It's a twist on the historical fiction.
Yeah, I love stuff like that. It's so creative.
It is. And it blends something two familiar things and blends them together.
Exactly.
Okay. I have those written down. CJ Archer. Okay. Let's see what I'm pretty sure. Oh, someone asked about Joanna Ruth Meyer. Did you recommend her books? Do you know who that is?
I do not know who that is.
Okay. They must be thinking of somebody else.
Joanna Ruth Meyer.
They asked if you were the one that recommended her books, but if you don't recognize the name, it probably was not you. Okay, question about the branches of love. Monica listened to you talking about courting the vicar's daughter, and in it you apparently said you had Philip's story all thought out. So she's wondering if we're ever going to get more. I know you're doing the facelift for the ones that are there. Are we ever going to get more for branches of love, or is it done?
I don't know. I don't feel like I can make any promises or anything but that one way or another. I do remember coming up with Philip's story because he's a kid and in the series, and I had an idea for what his life would be like when he was all grown up. But I haven't really thought about it since because I've moved on to other things. As an author, I mean, what we've already talked about, I have to pick things that produce income. That's one thing. And Regency and Branch is definitely, it does do that, is still doing that, even though it's been out for a long time. But I also have to pick things that are still interesting and exciting for me. And by the time I got to, I mean, there's 2 novellas and 6 novels in that series. And I love all of them. But by the time I wrote that last Christmas novella, I was like, I need to get away from these characters and I want to do something really different. And that's when I started writing Inglewood. And I'm still really, like, I've got 5 novels in Inglewood and I'm still really like obsessed with the characters. So that's why we're revisiting Inglewood.
We all are.
Yes. But there are currently no plans for another Branches book or a spinoff.
Okay. Sorry. We are going to get Inglewood. So
we are going to get Inglewood. I'm so excited about that.
We'll take it. Okay. Sabrina talked about how much she loves location and character inspirations and would love for you. And I think we have plans to share more of those. Yes. But Ruth specifically wanted to know if you have character inspirations for Sir Andrew and the authoress.
I do. I don't have any of that pulled up and it would take a minute. But I did pick an actor. I should probably, maybe I'll share that. I think I owe everybody a couple of character biographies at this point. You guys see Marilee writing stuff down? She's gonna remind me and make sure that this happens.
Yes. Well, Silas won the poll.
Yes, and we will talk all about Silas very soon. I'm actually trying to decide whether I want to do a video or if I want to type stuff up. But yes, we will be talking about Silas. But yeah, I did pick character inspiration for both Andrew and Josephine. And I will definitely be sharing that in the future. Because it's fun.
There you go, Ruth. She's going to share. I love seeing the character inspirations to see how the author pictured the characters and see if it lines up with how I pictured them. It's always
what's great is it can be different. Like I talked to somebody sent me a message, they said they didn't like when I did that because it ruined the character in their head. And it's like, you can imagine them however you want. That's okay.
Right?
It doesn't offend me.
Right. Sometimes who the author picks, I'm like, and then I just think of them the way that I've already, always thought of them.
Absolutely.
So they
Absolutely.
look me,
Exactly.
and that's okay, right? All right, Laura is asking in the comments. She said, "Do you have any clean Regency mystery series that you love?"
I am not a huge mystery reader. So not Regency, but the CJ Archer series that she's doing that's late Victorian, early Edwardian, I guess, where the heroine lives in a hotel. Oh goodness gracious, what's that series called? I've recommended it a few times here and on Facebook. Let's see.
It's a CJ Archer.
Yeah, it's a CJ Archer. It's what's the series called? Cleopatra Fox Mysteries. I love these, and it's a series, and it follows the same lady, and there's a slow burn romance taking place across the series, which is probably one of the main reasons I love it. She's got a lot of great snark too, and sass, which I like, but I don't read a lot of mysteries, and part of this is because I was raised on mysteries with my mom, and so most of the books that I read, and this is going to sound so snotty, and I'm so sorry, but most of the books I read, I figure things out way before you're supposed to. And same thing happens when I watch shows with my husband. It drives him nuts. And you're supposed to figure things out usually before your main character does as a reader. But I'm talking like I figured it out way too fast. And so it's just not as fun for me, and it's partly my author brain, because authors learn and are trained, I would say, even to look for patterns and to understand how to put all the puzzle pieces of a story together.
Sure.
This is why I also have never written a mystery, is because I feel like I would probably either give too much away because I would really want people to get it, or I wouldn't give anything away and think I was giving everything away. But I was raised reading all the, Nancy Drew, Hardy Boys, all the mystery stuff. And then my mom watched pretty much only mysteries, like mystery TV shows and movies. So it's like it's just my brain now. The only even film that has surprised me in a very long time was Knives Out. If anybody's seen that. I was surprised by that one, and I was like, okay, maybe mysteries aren't dead. And so I watched like 3 or 4 in a row right after that. I was like, no, I get them. Like,
which does take the fun out of it a little bit if you figure it out too early.
It does. And it's like, so I can sometimes do a mystery if there's a really, really heavy romance plot going on. But at the same time, if I figure out the mystery too soon, then I'm just kind of irritated that nobody else has figured it out yet in the book. Isn't that awful? So not every genre is for every person.
Right.
A good person to ask this question to might actually be Laura Beers, since she writes really good Regency novels herself. So if you haven't read her yet, read her. And if you're looking for more, probably join her fan group or send her an email and ask who she recommends.
Yeah, she's got some really good suspense. I really like Abigail Wilson. Hers have like that gothic. It's not really a series; they're all standalones. But they've got some fun mystery, a little bit of a gothic vibe. And then Erica Vetch has a good Regency mystery series. She's just about to release the second one. And those are really what's it called? Thorndike and Swan. Sorry, I'm losing my voice. So those are fun. There's not a lot out there though. It's not a
it's not a heavy genre yet.
It's not. Yeah. It hasn't quite made it.
And that's been a problem too. It's like a couple of things I've picked up. I'm like, oh, this might be good, and then I get a few pages, and then it's like, nope, she's already thinking about sleeping with a detective, and that's not kosher for a Regency.
Yes, I'm sure if you didn't care about the clean aspect, I'm sure you could find all sorts of things. And there seemed to be a lot more Victorian mystery.
That's true too. Joanna Barker's next release is kind of sort of a mystery. It's
Steal Her Heart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I talked to her when she was in the early stages of writing that one. And I think that's going to be really good. So keep your eye on that book. Um, yeah, it'll be good. Joanna Barker. Pay
And that's a
attention to her.
Regency, isn't it? That's not a Victorian.
Yes.
It's a Regency.
Yes. It's really cool because actually during the Regency, there wasn't a very formal law force in place. So it's kind of cool how she does that.
If anybody else has suggestions, put them in the comments. We can chat about it. Regency, clean Regency mystery. There's probably very few out there. All right, let me open back up the questions, but I think we might have covered everything that people asked. Yeah, other than lots of love, that you're amazing and we all love your books, and
yay,
we're all excited for all that. The schedule is really fun to see all the books coming. Lady's Heart of Gold, and then Lord Barley's book next, right? Christmas book.
I am really excited about that one too, guys. The heroine's Irish. I don't know if I've told anybody that yet, but it's so much fun to write it. It's not going to be as awesome probably as like somebody like Sarah Eden's Irish characters, but dang it, these things keep falling out. But I'm really excited to write an Irish character. So
it's going to be fun. And then so many more fun things to come.
Yep.
On the schedule.
Hopefully.
Oh yes, it's from you. It'll be great. Okay, well, I think that's all the questions that people had.
Yay. Well, thanks everybody. This has been fun.
Yeah, we'll have to do this more often. This is a fun way to do the Ask Sally.
It's definitely more fun than me doing it all by myself. I love it. Thank you so much for doing this with us.
It's always fun to chat. And thanks for everybody watching. It's fun to see all your comments.
So we'll talk to everybody later then.
Have a good day, guys.